Let's just look at the unit circle. You learned about the unit circle previously, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the values from negative pi over 2 to positive pi over 2. At negative pi over 2, the tangent value is y divided by x, which is negative 1 divided by 0, which is undefined. That's why we get a vertical asymptote here. At negative pi over 4, again, tangent's the y value divided by the x value. Anything divided by itself is 1, but a negative divided by a positive gives us negative 1. So you can see we're down here at negative 1. And then at 0 degrees, 0 divided by 1 is 0. Okay, and then at 45 or pi over 4, the y divided by the x is 1. So you can see we're right here at 1. And then over here at pi over 2, 1 divided by 0, the y divided by x, again, we're undefined because we can't divide by 0, so we get another vertical asymptote. So this is what we call our parent function. Okay, now one thing I just want to point out is you notice that the period, okay, how long it takes for this graph to repeat, from negative pi over 2 to positive pi over 2, that's a distance of pi. Okay, so the period is pi. I'll just write that down here. Period equals pi. Now, let's go take a look at some examples and I'll show you how this works. So when you see this number here in front of the x value, tangent 1/2 x, we can use the fact that the parent function has a period of pi, and then dividing that by this b value, okay, so period equals pi divided by b, we get pi divided by 1/2, which equals 2 pi. Okay, so what's actually happening, we're not actually dividing the x values by 2, we're actually multiplying them by 2. It actually has the opposite effect on the graph. But you can just use this formula, pi divided by the coefficient in front of x, okay, that'll give you your period. Now this is one thing that I want to mention to you is that when you go to graph this, take that period 2 pi and cut it in half. And the reason is because half the graph is to the right of the y-axis and half's to the left. So what you want to do, even though the period is 2 pi, is divide this by 2, so that's going to be 1 pi. And over here this is going to be negative 1 pi, but that gives you a period of 2 pi, right? So your asymptotes are going to be right here. Okay, just like in the parent function. And what I like to do is find these halfway points, these midway points. So I would take pi and divide it by 2 again. So that gives you pi over 2 and negative pi over 2. And then all you want to do is plot these key points. So we've got 1, 0, and negative 1. And that's our